Oh, this video is gonna get me canceled on the left and the right. Here we go. Gonna make everybody mad. A reaction of a reaction? Yeah, sure, why not? Let's go.
Anna detransitioned after 17 years, says doctors lied to him. What is this?
I medicalized 17 years ago at an LGBT center. I'm a CSA survivor. Doctors told me that...
CSA, what's CSA? Oh, something sexual assault, right? Criminal assault? Child sex? Oh, even worse. Oh my God. Wow.
I'm glad that he bleeped that out, because I really didn't want to put in the work to do that.
I didn't even know that.
What was wrong with me and how I felt about my body was not from CSA, even though I went there and said, did CSA make me this way?
CSA?
Yes, a childhood sexual assault. And they said
Wow.
no. They said no. They said being gay is innate and being trans is innate, and what you have is gender identity disorder. They diagnosed me with gender dysphoria, and I believe...
So you're telling me that it is a disease or a disorder or whatever. They're technically different. There's a lot of similarities. I think it's actually a derangement. I think they fuck with people's heads.
their bullshit for about 17 years.
Holy shit. I mean, I think it's very obvious that, like, if you think about it in a general sense,
it's sexual propaganda. That's the general sense that I'm getting.
I bet sexuality is probably a mix of both, and people that have gender dysphoria is probably a mix of both. And the big issue that I think with gender dysphoria that people don't understand is that there's a really big spectrum of people that in one way or another display traits of the opposite gender, but they're not actually the opposite gender. Like a tomboy isn't a transsexual man, and a femboy isn't a transsexual woman. And so there's a huge component to this. Like, for example...
And they're like, they didn't used to exist. Trans people didn't used to exist. I mean, there were like a couple, but not to this level. Like back when I was in school, everybody was fine with gay and bisexual kids. Like, we weren't fine with it, but it was gonna be what it was gonna be. And a lot of kids weren't really, and they just pretended to be because their friends were, and they thought that they were trying to be cool. And really, they were just weird kids. Trust me, I know. I was hanging out with a lot of those weird kids.
There's that. There's like cross-dressing, for example. Like just because a boy likes to wear a dress, that doesn't mean that he thinks he's a woman. There are maybe men that just like wearing dresses. I mean, they just think that it looks nice on them. For
yeah, you ever seen Dawn of the Dead 2004? There's a guy that tries on some heels. Like, it's always kind of been a thing, but everybody thought that it was weird. And guess what? It still is weird.
whatever reason, or they just like the style. The same as, like, you know, you have Scotsmen who wear kilts. So there are all of these other components, and this is the big issue that I think a lot of people have with the way that trans stuff is pushed on very young people, is that they don't really have the full understanding of the spectrum. Now, and I brought this thing up.
I don't think anybody has a full understanding of the spectrum. I'm not even sure the spectrum actually exists. I think there's probably just normal and fucking weird. It's a binary system.
Let me see if I can pull it up and find it again, because I've shown this before, and it's a chart that's extremely important, and anybody on the internet fully understands this chart, but many people in real life don't. So learning the differences between sexual identifications, right? So if somebody likes drag, that doesn't mean that they're transsexual. If somebody likes cross-dressing, that doesn't mean that they're transsexual. If somebody is a femboy, that doesn't make them transsexual. Traps are not necessarily transsexual. They could just be necessarily dressing up in a certain way. Futanari, that is a very different concept. Tomboy, that's another concept. And so if you have a one-size-fits-all, if you don't understand the...
There's something that they all have in common, though. They're sexual degenerate freaks.
way that your gender is, or you have any sort of conforming ideology or conforming feelings of the opposite gender, you're automatically trans. I think that's a huge disservice to young people, because they don't understand the context of that yet, because they don't understand sexuality. Like, for example, you don't teach a kid multiplication and division before they understand addition and subtraction. And I think that basically approaching every trans issue and saying that, like, any kid that displays any sort of interest towards something that is the opposite gender...
Yeah, him using addition and subtraction and mathematics as an example is pretty funny, because most people that I know try not to use math. And they just want to, they would rather things be terrible than actually do math. Like if they're building a shelf or something, they'd rather just slap it together. Yeah, it looks right. They don't want to measure it and make it perfect. It's a lot of work.
Is automatically trans. This is very problematic and very bad, because anybody on the internet knows that there's a huge spectrum of this. Like, for example, what a bullshit claim. Yeah, it's a bullshit claim. Like, for example, like, I've dressed up like a girl. That doesn't mean that I identify as a girl. Like, people that are trans are very different than people who dress up as the opposite gender. One of them believes they're the opposite gender. The other one knows they're not, and they wear the clothes anyway. That's a huge fucking difference. I wish more people would understand this. People, the thing is that if these people spent more time on 4chan, none of these problems would have ever happened.
Oh, there'd be a lot more different problems, though.
Because everybody's supposed to know this by the time they're like 15. But I guess whenever kids are 9 and they're being told this stuff, they haven't had time. They haven't even, these kids haven't even seen an ISIS execution yet. So, like, how do you expect them to understand it? They're getting spawn camped. Yeah. Cross-dressing is not the same as being trans. Yes.
Willing to tell me everything that you went through?
I had facial feminization surgery. I had sex reassignment surgery.
Wow.
I was on HRT for 17 years. Now I'm on a combo dose because I can't go off. I have multiple health conditions from transitioning young and for transitioning for so long.
Yup. 100%. They don't care. That's just more money for them. And it looks good for them on paper for their virtue signaling.
Wow.
Wow. So what was it for you that kind of woke you up to, this isn't what I should have done?
I found out that homosexual transition was environmentally caused in almost every single case by childhood or by internalized homophobia or failed boy syndrome. I was given a blanket diagnosis. It's given to anybody who has a body.
I think that there's probably a spectrum of this where there's some people that are born gay and they're just set to factory default setting gay.
Yeah, and also there's some really feminine children. I have a cousin who we swore he was gonna grow up gay. I was like 15, he was probably 5. He was super whiny, super feminine, didn't want to play with boys' toys, watched girl cartoons. And as he grew up, he grew out of that feminized stage. And now he's a farmer. He drives a tractor. Well, he's not a farmer, he's a farmhand. And he's one of the most redneck dudes that you'd ever meet.
And there's other people that, you know, there's a little bit of give and take there. Just the same as everything else. Literally the same as every single thing in the entire world. Like, for example, if somebody is like naturally tall, but they don't get enough nutrition, they won't be as tall, but they'll probably still be taller than average. If somebody, you know, naturally is going to go bald, they will probably still go bald even if they take certain medications, but it will happen at a slower rate. So everything like this is a spectrum. It's the same as anything. It's the same as metabolism, blood pressure, you know, hairlines, aging, eyesight, everything. And so sexuality and IQ is another one. Like, you can have a dumb person and you can educate that person and move that, like, basically, like, let's say this is the IQ distribution and your IQ is here. Well, you can go in between here and here. You can't go to here and you can't go to here, but there's a spectrum here and you can move it back and forth. Bad take? No, this is common sense. It's common sense.
True. I think he's right about it.
Issue as a child nowadays.
Did they ever try to refer you to like a therapist or any?
I went to therapy for a year. I saw psychologists. I was diagnosed. It took a year back then, not 15 minutes.
Ooh, looks like they really secured themselves a customer. Lifelong.
I was in the South on the East Coast, but they still believed that transsexualism was innate, that gender identity was this innate disorder that people just had, and like CSA didn't really rule you out.
And you know, the right wing talked about stuff like this. Not too long ago, it was a few years ago, probably around the time COVID was really a thing. But nobody cared and it fell out of the news. So the right wing stopped caring and they just kind of let it happen. And also, they're tied up in the pharmaceutical industry, who is causing these things to happen, and they're still gonna make money from it. All of these people that they fucked up, they deserve reparations.
How do you find your story received by people who continue to sort of push medicalization?
They hate me. They call me a bigot. They say that trans women are women. They say that
Trust the science. You gotta trust the science. Whatever happened to that? Everybody forgot that COVID happened. Well, the science says that what this person says is true.
That's a pretty common phenomenon, huh? Yeah, it sure happens a lot.
gender dysphoria is a valid diagnosis.
Yeah.
I've combed through trans history. I've read all of the old academics who created this. If you go back to like the early 1900s, transition was conceived by old academics who were trying to find a way for homosexuals to exist in a fascist world in Europe. It just so happens that AGP is also real, and that got latched.
Isn't there a country currently that's doing that? That if you're caught being a caught being a gay person, that they just forcefully transition you?
Onto a bunch of AGPs transitioned, and fast forward 100 years forward, and we have an ideology that's based on lies.
Yep, and that evil people within the government are propagating and pushing on people, the regular people, to control them and keep them locked into a system that they'll never escape from.
That kids are told to as soon as they have issues. And
See, that's the thing that I'm talking about, right? Is that like when you're a kid and your parent sees that you're expressing interest in something that's traditionally for another gender, if that parent goes and says, "Oh my God, I think my kid's trans," that's a huge issue. That's a big deal.
And it's not something that you should be happy about. A lot of these parents want their kids to be trans, and it just so happens they end up being trans. Funny how that works.
Forbid you're effeminate and you believe that something's wrong with you as a man because you like pretty things and are sassy.
Fucking exactly, yes.
So how do you identify now?
I'm a gay man.
Have you lost friends or anyone by detransitioning?
I was canceled by every friend I had who was liberal in this city and had to leave the city.
Who was liberal? Had to specify.
Why is it important for you to be here?
Because people are being lied to when they're being diagnosed. They're not being diagnosed with what actually causes the gender dysphoria. They're just being diagnosed with a symptom of a problem. And there are multiple problems that cause those symptoms. And when you don't appropriately diagnose people, you lead them into a life of ruin. All of these interventions are permanent, they're irreversible, and they lied to me.
That's what we've been saying. And people are finding out. Now this person's famous.
Wow. I really feel bad for him. Honestly, not gonna lie, I feel bad for him. Thoughts? Yeah. I mean, the thing is also, if this is happening to you when you're very young, you're a victim of child sexual abuse, and then you have all these adults telling you this is what you are, you're at the most vulnerable point in your life, and this is what's happening. This is awful, man. And yeah, I completely agree with that statement. And this is the issue that...
Did Reddit flag this? Promoting hate based on identity or vulnerability. This is why I don't use Reddit.
I think a lot of people have is that I think that the amount of attacks that this individual has gone through, like being like, hated on and like being reviled, called a bigot and everything like that, this puts like, and remember what I said before about how everybody, like we were speed running the removal of gay marriage and everybody said that I was insane and like this wasn't happening. And do you remember how I said that LGBT pride wasn't going to be as big this year because companies were afraid of doing it and people said that I was a homophobe?
And that right there, yeah, the company's dropping out, that's hilarious to me because that just shows the whole time they've been pandering. They're going to go for whatever audience they have left. And eventually they're going to keep flip-flopping and everybody's going to find out. I've already found out. I don't buy hardly anything from any company. If I buy anything, I'm doing thorough research on it. Seriously. Like, if you've done Pride Month, nah, get out of here. There's a couple places that I have exception for. That's like necessity, such as Walmart. But in many places, people have options. Most of the time I have options, just not with Walmart.
Well, look at this. Here's some more graphs. Oh, look, it's more graphs that say that I was right. Wow, look at this. So, American support for same-sex marriage, look, it's gone down. From 2021 To 2025,
Yeah, as the conservative population increases, or I guess as the liberal population decreases. I don't know. Both of those things at once.
it's gone down almost over 10 points. And only inside for US adults is what really matters, right? That's the green line. That's the average. It's actually gone down. And you can see that, like, for the first time, really, since, like, maybe a one little dip inside of 2000 and, like, after 2018. But, like, other than that, it's been going up steadily ever since it was allowed. And now it's going down again, which is kind of crazy. And, like, 13%? Yeah. And what does a point represent? Well, multiple points represent a line. And you can see Republicans especially have been completely radicalized against it because of, I think, these extreme trans issues. And you can see the same thing happening. Here's the other thing. LGBTQ pride is seeing a mass exodus of advertisers and sponsors.
Man, I'm just tired of seeing it. I'm just tired of seeing all the gay stuff. I mean, we used to have gay stuff and nobody cared because it wasn't a big deal. Like Ballad of Gay Tony, GTA 4. I say it all the time, stuff like that.
San Francisco Pride lost 200K. Idaho's big Pride event lost 400K. Scared advertisers, flag bans, and Trump. The U.S. is in for a troubled Pride in 2025. So event organizers in red and blue states have...
Man, I can't wait until June 2026. What's it gonna be like? It's gonna be crazy.
Seen an exodus of sponsors amidst the anti-LGBTQ political climate. They insist the show will go on. Yeah, they're trying to keep doing it. And I said, guys, I tried. Why does nobody ever listen?
And like, honestly, some of these companies, I'm just like, why? HP? I don't get that one. Cisco? I mean, I kind of get it, but not really. NHL? Are there any gay NHL players? IBM? I knew about that one. IBM extended to Red Hat, extended to Fedora.
Maybe I need to start showering more so people can start listening. Oh my god. They need to start. Why don't people listen, man? I've been trying to tell them this shit.
Dude, we've all been trying to tell them.
Nobody wanted to fucking hear it. Yeah, it makes me crazy. And so anyway, yeah, I don't know what the hell is going on. That might work. Something's gotta work. Damn. They should stop the parades. They're obnoxious. The pride parades are okay.
They've all just decided that they're gonna do whatever they can to chase as much money as they can. And it's made them retarded. Or maybe they were already retarded going into it. And they just got lucky. Got in at the right time. Before all this weird cult stuff got corporate.
But the problem is when you have men in bondage that are there in a public space around children. That should not happen. You can celebrate sexuality without dressing like a fucking gimp. Like, are you kidding me? What the fuck is wrong with you? Really, that's not you don't need to do that. That's insane. And so, yes, it's gooner behavior. It is. And it's so fucking weird. And now it's alien at 9 years. It only took us 9 years to go from we just want to get married to we'll steal your children and mutilate them. No one can argue that gay marriage didn't pave the way for this. Gay marriage did pave the way for this.
And we said it was going to. See, we knew it was going to be a slippery slope. I don't even know why we had to make it a thing anyway. I don't know why government has to be engaged in marriage at all. Like, why do we got to tell the government that we're married? Why can't we just be married and be between a man, a woman, and God? Or a man and whatever, spaghetti monster, whatever they believe in. I don't get it.
But that doesn't mean that gay marriage was bad. Like, for example, you could say that a lot of good systems, like, for example, actually, I don't know if I want to use any examples because the examples I could use could be misconstrued in pretty big ways. But there are a lot of things that are done that are good that end up having bad intentions. Like here, let me give you one example. So, like, the amount of support that single mothers get is something that also encourages women to become single mothers. It creates a reward structure around that because now they're able to get extra benefits and extra money. And so, is it good that women are single mothers? No, it's not. But is it bad that single mothers didn't get money? Well, yeah. And I don't support getting rid of any of those, by the way. I actually support giving more money to single mothers and more people like this.
You know, I disagree. I say we go back to the 80s and 90s, where it was so bad that people had movies made about how bad their experience was with it. I'm just kidding. Or am I? Not really, I kinda am. I don't like the government being involved in things, even when people are technically benefiting from it. Because somebody's losing somewhere else.
And that's coming out of my taxes, right? I mean, like, I have to pay, like, fucking, I think it's, I'm not making that much money, right, yet. It's not 8 figures, but I know it's going to be probably a lot, 7 figures of fucking taxes, right? A lot of money. And no. I have a different frame of reference, and I think about things differently than other people do, right? And that's okay. I don't mind this. It's a lot of my money, and that's okay. But why L? Yeah, I don't know why people think it's an L either. But what I'm saying is that things happen, and they're for good reasons, but they create negative outcomes because people take advantage of them and they use them in malicious ways. That does not mean that you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. But and that this is true, but the problem is that it's only true in a way that it was never checked.
Yep, just get the government out of all marriage. And there you go. Problem solved.
And wife was supporting this abomination whenever I was a libertarian in my 20s. The entire thing should be outlawed everywhere. Look at this, 14,000 likes. Or you could ban transgender surgery and have gay marriage at the same time. Nope, we tried this and I'm no longer interested in half measures. And you see so many people that have become completely radicalized at all, completely.
And you just got people like me who are shouting into the void like, no, stop, get the government out of all marriage. We don't need it. You don't have to make marriage illegal. Just completely pull out of it. What are you doing?
Against not only gay marriage, but all LGBT stuff. Or sorry, trans stuff, but all LGBT stuff in general. So giving money to single mothers increases single motherhood, which disadvantages children. And your solution is to increase money to single mothers, pure retardation? Yeah, of course, because that's not my only solution. My other solutions inside of a Viewpoint is that I would like quadruple the amount of money that married couples received as well. So it's not about like the goal should be that no kids can't afford food. That should be the goal. Like I think that you should have people say like, oh well, you shouldn't have advantages for being married in society. No, you should have more advantages. You should get more tax breaks. You should get more amounts.
Well, you know, I don't know how I feel about this one because I think there should be no taxes. I think all taxes are illegal. Unless you're like a giant corporation or a really big business or something. Maybe then.
Of child tax credits and stuff like that. So whenever I'm talking about giving money to single mothers, I'm looking at this in a one-dimensional thing, and I can see why I'm getting pushback on this. I understand your perspective, but can you see how in the context now it makes a little bit more sense? I'm for giving everybody more money, but proportionally I want to give married couples more money because I think that's a stronger incentive and a better outcome for children. So that's the way that I feel about it. That's my larger viewpoint, and that way you guys can kind of see where I'm coming from, right? And so anyway, going back to this, but you see kind of, it's the old idea of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't think this is the road to hell. I think that there are a very, very small subset of extremely radicalized, mentally ill, virtue signors, and all.
Whoa. Not mentally ill, because that implies that they can be healed. Mentally deranged is the phrase that I like to use.
Also, this is another big component, is that, again, we have two groups of people in society that cause all of our problems. Karens and incels. And the primary group is Karens, and in fact, the Karens make a lot of the incels. And you have a lot of these upper middle class Karens that push these causes and think that they're being a good person by doing it. This is especially true with young women because they never have to live with the consequences of these decisions. They never have to live with the consequences of, it might sound good to say that, oh yeah, it's okay to tell a 9-year-old that they're trans because it's like, oh, well, I care about acceptance. And
you got all these women out here that are basically just Hank's wife from Breaking Bad. Like, she tries to be a good person, but she's also a kleptomaniac. She's also kind of a bitch. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people out there that are like that. Not exactly kleptomaniacs, but, trade any other mania.
I have trans friends, and that's okay. But the reality is that they don't have to live with the consequence of that perceived altruism. And that's the big issue. What creates the Karens? You know what creates a lot of Karens is shitty men. Shitty men with bad leadership skills. A man that can't lead his wife in a way that is productive and, a spiritually, mentally, emotionally stable way.
Also, very, very gullible people who buy into what they read online from corporate media. And it's all lies, and it tricks them. It tricks their brains. It's mind control. It's what the government does. It's what they always try and do. It's what... We're headed to the sci-fi dystopia, man. We got the brain chips that they're using to try and control people's emotions and track their brains and scan them and all kinds of crazy shit. And this ain't conspiracy theory. This is true. Like, look it up. The Steam brain chip, Neuralink brain chip. They're doing this shit. They're gonna mix these two things, the corporate mind control and the literal brain chip mind control. And then what are you gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do when they start trying to force them into our brains? What are you gonna do when they start beheading people for not getting chipped? Are you gonna get beheaded? Are you gonna allow yourself to be beheaded? Because I'll tell you what, I'm not getting a fucking brain chip.
I think that they're the ones that give rise to Karens. I think so. I think that men definitely have a role to play in that. 100%. And so, yeah, comfort and boredom. Yep, definitely. I mean, there's a little bit of that too. Sure. Oppressive men. Yeah, there are oppressive men. But anyway, so again, I just wanted to show you guys, everybody was getting mad at me. Not everybody. What am I saying everybody for? There's like 10 people getting mad. People are getting mad at me yesterday for saying that this was going to happen with Pride. And they were also getting mad at me for saying that this is what was happening with gay marriage. And you can see the charts and you can see this happening. And here it is right here.
Yep, everybody went sane because everybody on the left went insane. Hopefully the pendulum doesn't go too far in the other direction and the right starts going insane. They kind of already are with people like Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes. Hopefully they're just fringe and like nobody actually pays attention to them and we don't get more of those types of people. Because I would argue that that may be worse because they're pretending to be on your side, but then they're really not. And they're all just weird woke liars, just the same as the left.
And I wish more people would listen to this kind of stuff because it's so problematic and so dangerous, and I don't think anybody can really understand the context of it at all. Yeah, I don't know. Weak men create hard times. Yeah, I guess so, right? But either way, I really do feel pretty strongly about this cause, and I think that's a pretty big issue. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's real rough, man. I feel sorry for that guy. Yeah, things probably gonna get even weirder as they get better. It's almost like a ribbon, like two ribbons that are flowing together, and it's gonna like come back and meet, and things will be normal again, and then they'll separate again, and things will get weird, and then it'll come back and meet and get normal, and it's just gonna keep doing that until we end ourselves. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna react to all the chaos and laugh at all the stupid people. That's all I got for this one. See you in the next one. Buy a t-shirt down there in the description. I'm out.